Greetings, fam. Welcome to Rhoda 360. This is the second episode of our new series, Grace Over Chains. Before anything else, I always do this. There's a trigger warning. We are going to go deeper into discussing childhood trauma and looking at the shadows that follow us from childhood into adulthood. So the topics will include physical and emotional abuse, neglect, violence, spiritual mislabeling, and more. So if your heart feels tender right now and you cannot take this right now, it's okay to pause and come back later. Crisis hotlines and support resources would be linked in the description under this video. Please use them. You're welcome. I'm Rhoda. I'm your sister in this journey. I'm a survivor myself, and I'll be sharing from lived experiences, not as a therapist. This is not medical or professional advice. This is not some mental health counseling class. Healing often needs trained counselors, alongside faith. Like I used to tell people, while you're looking for help from your spiritual leaders, churches, mosque, and everywhere, also seek professional mental health counselors, right? They help. They do a lot. 2, 3, 6 sessions with them, and you see how far you will go. So let's breathe in. Let's breathe in all the peace. Breathe in all the peace, all the peace, all the peace from the Almighty. And let out every heavy weight, everything that was holding you down. Let it out. Let it go. The hurt, the toxicity, the unforgiveness, the pain of betrayal. Let it out. This is a safe space, and you are welcome. So, fam, like I said, this is a second episode on this series, Grace Over Chains, and I'm happy that you've joined me here. If you're listening, maybe something somewhere, maybe something in the title pulled you in. I don't know, maybe Grace Over Chains or Shadows of Childhood Trauma, something in the title pulled you in. Maybe you feel those chains still, quiet whispers of shame, sudden fear, pain, unexplained pain, anger, shame, anger that rises too fast. I know all these signs, right? Some people call it being short-tempered, right? But anger that rises too fast and unnecessary, and like over issues that, shouldn't amount to anything, issues that should just, be discussed and people will just move over from, right? If you go through all that, then I think this episode is for you. So calm down, listen, watch, and enjoy. I said, if probably you cannot access any counselors or professional help for now, but you really want to talk to someone, especially one who would not judge you, one who is also a survivor herself, just someone to listen, not even provide advice or solutions to your problems. Just flick me a DM. Look for me on Instagram, Rhoda_pod, and then DM me. I'll always look for time, 30 minutes, 1 hour, just to listen to you, right? You don't have to pay. It's not a paid service. It's just my way of showing that someone out there cares and someone out there listens. So let's go on. Growing up in a West African home full of love. Yes, a home or an environment that is vibrant. Yes. But those kind of homes and environments were also full of unspoken rules, right? Maybe because of culture or tradition or where our own parents or grandparents were coming from. I learned early that some pains were meant to stay hidden, right? So a beating for being disrespectful, even when you were not, or probably you were, such beating wasn't just correction, you know? It taught me that my voice did not matter. So there were some form of behaviors of physical abuse, violence that instead of encouraging, me to voice out my issues or voice out my concerns at that moment, I had to keep quiet because that was like the safe point then. And it might be happening to a lot of people even right now, you know, beating for making mistakes, for being disrespectful, beating for not, being who your adult or the person in authority, your parent or your guardian, who they thought you should be, in that phase of life. Beating for everything. Some of us were beaten for everything, right? Even when we're good, we're beaten because we're not good enough. Or even when we're supposed to act bad, maybe to people, to family enemies, we didn't act bad enough, so we're beaten. We're beaten for not eating our food. We're beaten for um, being sick. So yes, I was blamed a lot for being, a sick child. Again, church was fire and power. I miss those deliverance nights. Demons fled, people fell under anointing, all beautiful. But when my own shadows, the shadows from my own childhood trauma lingered, I wondered, am I not praying hard enough? Am I not following the ways of the Bible enough? Am I not listening enough? Am I not being molded biblically enough? Or have I not been exercised enough? Like, have I not been delivered enough? You begin to question yourself. You begin to question your self-worth. You begin to, question what you were not doing enough that was making those shadows to linger. Those shadows are what we are naming today in this episode. Not to stay stuck in them, not to blame those people or those events, or especially those adults, parents, guardians, extended family members that would have hurt us, that would have traumatized us, growing up. Not to blame anyone, you understand, but to let God's light touch places that we've kept dark for too long. I hope a lot of people, especially people in their 20s and 30s and 40s above, watch this video. Those things, those places that you've kept too long in your mind, in your heart, places that you've refused to visit, pain responses that you've refused to attend to. This series is for anyone carrying childhood wounds in a faith that is both lifeline and sometimes complicated. We are going there, right, with honesty, scripture, and grace. And I'm happy that you've joined me to this time, this level of the video. Let's start gently. What do we mean by childhood trauma? And why is the effect of childhood trauma called shadows? Like we've said before in previous video, trauma isn't just the event itself. It is the shadow the event casts over your whole life, the kind of things that begin to happen to you, the kind of decisions you begin to make as a result of that trauma. When a child faces overwhelming threats, danger, betrayal, forgiveness. There are times you hurt the adult in control, the adult who has an authority over you for a time being. Then in for another 5 years, you are being reminded of that thing, right? Betrayal from adults or from family members who you've looked up to. Danger because you do not know what to do, right or wrong. You don't know when you're right, you don't know when you're wrong, you don't know your left from your right. Even when you wanted something, you dare not ask. Threat because your life could just end, or maybe things could just, good the little good things would have just ended for you at any moment if you ever voiced out your pain. The body remembers what the mind tries to forget, right? The young nervous system of a child always goes into survival mode. And that child grows into an adult who had suppressed, this nervous system, who has suppressed all these shadows, who has suppressed this trauma for decades, for years of their lives. But then, like we always say, the muscle always remember. There's that thing about the stomach, the muscle always remembering the past. For instance, now it happens to me a lot when someone who had traumatized me in the past, whether as a child or even as an adult, right, calls me or reaches out to me. There's a way I feel. That is my body remembering what had happened in the past, right? So people do not really forget things. Is even if they decide to, their body will always remind them. Those shadows add up as things like hypervigilance. In fact, there's a video I shot about a few weeks ago, about 4 weeks ago now, that I've not posted. And there I discussed hypervigilance. I discussed things that how I said how your childhood trauma affects you in adulthood. And because it was so vulnerable for me, I felt a little bit drawn back in posting that video. I think I'll just post it anyways. These shadows shows up as hypervigilance when you're always scanning for danger as an adult, even maybe you're already a parent or even a grandparent. Sometimes you are a CEO of a company, you are a senior person right now, but you're always scanning for danger, even in safe places. People call it OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, where you're always looking for something wrong, something you're forgetting, or is it something you're always, even in safe places, you're always on the edge. Shadows shows up as deep shame. That voice saying something is wrong with me. Something is always wrong with me. Maybe you are in a relationship, or you're staying with people, but you feel you're not up to their standard. And see, if you stay with bad people, especially people that are manipulative, they will use it against you. But I don't really mind anymore, because the people that used my childhood trauma against me have been left to deal with karma. Such people, you don't call them out or begin to say, no, this is what this person did to me, because they knew that I was battling some form of trauma, or they knew what I was suffering as a result of the kind of family I came from. So many people use it, even immediate extended family, or let's call them extended family member. Yeah, especially when you are emotionally available, although you feel deep shame, you are emotionally available for those people. They always use it against you, but leave all that to God, right? Leave all that to karma and focus on growth. Another way shadows shows up is emotional floods, sudden anger or sadness that feels bigger than the moment. Somehow wake up in the morning or come back from work, you are suddenly angry or sad. Sometimes it's even in an event of, a celebration for the family or for people, but, you have that burst of anger or burst of sadness or low mood. Shadows can show up as numbness where you disconnect, in order to protect yourself. Say there is a brainstorming section in the office or there's some form of argument. Instead of stating your point or instead of stating your side of the story or your own belief in that context, you disconnect from the discussion and keep quiet. I used to be like that because growing up, that was my way of escaping the situation at the moment. So when the whole outburst would begin and the whole screaming and the whole reminding me of where my father was or who I was, how I was nothing, being numb at that moment was disconnecting myself from in trying to protect myself. Where I witnessed, you know, my adults, the adults I was directly under or I was under, behaving violent in some way or close family members being violent in some way, even, threatening me in some way. I couldn't stand up for myself. So I had to numb myself. I had to disconnect to protect myself. And that was physically, emotionally, and psychologically. It was also like that. When you hear all those toxic, manipulative behaviors, toxic sentences, toxic statements about one, in the spiritual world, they call it cursing. The adult you are under, the adult that is supposed to be taking care of you, keeps cursing you out. Somehow, to protect yourself, you numb your brain, you numb your mind. So you're able to at least move forward to the next phase. Shadows shows up as trust issues, being hard, to believe people, or even God. You find it hard to believe that people will not hurt you. You find it hard to believe that God, will not hurt you. And that's why many people today do not even believe in God because, some people will say a God that can allow maybe terrorists to seize my family or to kill a member of my family, or a God that can allow earthquakes, can allow bad things to happen. Trust struggles in relationships, in marriages, in your romantic relationships, in every other setting. You struggle with trust. Shadows can also exist as physical echoes, you know, bodily, feelings, headaches, long-term conditions like cancer, anxiety, sleep troubles, stomach issues. I've said it over and over again about how we diagnose stomach ulcers in Nigeria. In psychological terms, these are common responses to threat, like the fly flight response. But in our spiritual language, we might call them bondages, strongholds. Both can be true. Of course, both truths can coexist, right? Because God made us body, mind, and spirit. If one is not doing well, the other ones cannot do well. So if we are seeking healing in our body, we must seek healing for our mind and spirit also. If we're seeking healing for our spirit, we must do so for also our body and mind. For seeking healing for our mind, we must do so for our body and our spirit. I tell someone that I do a lot of walking, at least before I take walks, maybe an hour, 30 minutes, just to strengthen my body at the same time, work on my mind. So, one way that experts measure these shadows is through the use of ACEs. ACEs are adverse childhood experiences. And the original study of ACEs looked at 10 categories, which include physical, emotional, and sexual abuse, physical or emotional neglect, household challenges like parental separation, mental illnesses, substance abuse, incarceration, and domestic violence. Now, how it is calculated is if a child or if someone has gone through one of the ACE or one of the childhood, one adverse event, you will have low ACE. If someone had gone through maybe 5 or 7 or even 10 out of the 10 um, um, trauma adverse events, then the person will have a higher ACE scores. And higher ACE scores correlates with higher risk later in life, health risks like depression, anxiety, chronic illnesses like fibromyalgia, other chronic pain conditions, even cancer in some cases, diabetes, hypertension, heart diseases, bone issues, people suffering diverse things. But here's what's powerful. Awareness breaks the circle. And that's why someone like me, who would normally not sit on camera, is out here speaking about it. Awareness breaks the cycle. The more you talk about it, the more people realize that, this thing, is an issue and it's a challenge. The more people even work on themselves. The more I talk about it today, the more I work on my relationship with people, my parenting styles, the way I do things, the way I think about people, right? Naming the shadows is the first step to letting the light in. So I ask you today, people that are watching me today, what are your shadows? Or what is your shadow? If you have so many like me, name them. You can jot them down if you want. What are those shadows? In our West African realities, ACEs often carry extra weight, like poverty amplifying neglect, toxic family dynamics, divorce, or migration, which separates families, right? Even community violence, adding layers of fear. Have you ever seen where uncles and aunties at loggerheads actually fighting? Everyone in the family, have some form of tension going on. It is scary. It is a scary scene. For someone like me, it numbs me, right? Oh, right. So let's go deeper into how these shadows fall into a specific context. And I'm talking about the context of someone coming from West Africa, the West African shadows now. We look at the shadow of discipline on violence. You're trying to discipline someone, but you are actually violating the person. You're actually bringing in violence into the person's life, into your own household, because you are trying to be disciplined. In Africa, then, we used to laugh at it, even on social media today, how our parents will be coming back from work and every child will be running into their rooms because you may be beaten just because they opened the door and the door was opened, or the kids left the door opened, or someone left their shoes, outside the door, something as they are coming back from work in the evening, they are coming to hold the rod. In many homes and schools, spare the rod, like the book of Proverbs said, became a license for severe beating. Everybody wanted to beat a child. Almost every child suffered the canes, the belts, the kneeling on gravels under the sun. What was the shadow in this case? A child learns that love was equal to pain. Authority equals fear. There are women in marriages today, let me use that example, that if they do not feel the pain, maybe beating from their husbands or some form of pain, they will not believe that the husband loves them. Love to people equals to pain. Without pain, people will not feel, some people do not feel love. Authority equals fear. When you hear a certain name, you shake. Till sometime this year, when I hear of a certain name, or when I see a certain person or certain person of authority, especially someone that has authority over me, even close family members, I shiver. Fear, because, that was the shadow of discipline. That's what happens when discipline turned into violence. We grow up anxious. We grow up as perfectionists. We grow up rebellious, if you look at it very well, because while we are trying to be perfect for the adults we're growing up under, we're also rebellious because our bodies kept telling us that this was not the right way of growing up. This was not the right experience. Our bodies kept telling us. So that rebellious, attitude was there. Some of us ran away from home. Some of us went to meet family members we thought could salvage us. Some of us were always looking for a way out, a way out, a way out. It was called rebellious then. But then, at least now we understand that it was just our bodies looking for a way out. The experiences we were going through then, those adverse experiences were not supposed to be. You see a case of people migrating for greener pastures. Many people are not migrating for greener pastures. They are living, especially when you're living war-torn zones. They are living war-torn zones to places that they feel they can find peace. Many people are leaving their countries because of wars, because of insecurities, because of, the corruption. And I'm not going to mention any country in West Africa, but we know what we are talking about. Carrying shame, that says, I deserved it. Parents, guardians always blaming the child. You're working with the child, you deserve it. The child has stomach pain in the morning, waking up in the morning, you deserve it. The child deserved any bad thing that happened to them. Secondly, there is a shadow of silence and family honor. You had to keep quiet. If anybody harmed you or did anything to you as a child, you had to keep quiet to protect the family honor. If an uncle hurt you, you keep quiet. If an auntie, hurt you in any way, I'm looking at sexual and emotional abuse now, even financial abuse. Someone cheated you, you're doing a business with a cousin or something, and it doesn't work out, and the person cheated you out of the business, you have to keep quiet because, this is family. They use the saying that don't wash your linen outside, don't dry your linen outside. Meaning things like sexual abuse, emotional neglect, family conflict stayed hidden to protect the family's reputation. What was the shadow of this? Deep loneliness. Many people grew up lonely. Many adults feel lonely, even if they are married. Because if most likely people that grew up in a family or in places where they experience adverse childhood issues would most likely be attracted, to people who also experience adverse childhood experiences. So these people come together and try to build their home and trying to continue the lane without healing, without, responding to the pain, or without counseling, without nothing. And that's why most relationships do not work. Most relationships do not work. The ones that work, most of them are manipulative. Somebody in there is trying to actually force it to work, you know. Deep loneliness. Many adults are lonely, feeling that your pain doesn't matter or that speaking truth brings rejection. Which, of course, as children, most times speaking truth brought rejection. How dare you even mention the truth in some homes? Another shadow was or is the shadow of conflict and loss. And coming from West African context and the way the world is right now, it's not just West African. Generally, conflicts from civil wars to Boko Haram to banditry. Children witnessed horrors, lost parents, became displaced. The shadows lingered as nightmares, survivor's guilt, and numbness, to joy. I'll talk about my dad someday, but then it's this one episode will not be enough. They lost, they missed affection, they missed opportunity to actually feel the presence of a dad in my life as a result of conflict, as a result of loss, Boko Haram banditry, right? Then another one is the shadow of spiritual mislabeling. You see this? I used to tell people that if you want to meet covert narcissists, go to the churches, go to spiritual leaders. Shadow of spiritual mislabeling. A sick child that is called Ogbanje. You see a child that is sick. I don't know why a child would be sick and then they take them to spiritual leaders. Anyways, the first point of call should be the hospital. But then again, there are many reasons why chronic conditions happen in children. For instance, in West Africa or in Nigeria, where we have many cases of sickle cell anemia, you'll be hearing names. A sick child will be called Ogbanje. A strong-willed girl will be labeled witch. A grieving teen that is grieving their childhood, they are grieving the love they did not have as children, right? Will be seen as demon possessed. In radical deliverance settings, the shadow even deepens. Feeling inherently evil, these children will be feeling unworthy of God's love with the way they get treated in that spiritual setting. They feel as though they are actually evil. Some children are even made to accept these terms, these names, just to protect themselves. You call a child a witch, you are strong-willed, you are a witch. Accept that you're a witch. For you to, escape that moment, the child will accept that they are witches. Or she's an ogbanja or something, just for you to leave her alone. The shadow of gender expectations. Africans, West Africans, where do we go from here? Is it the marriage pressure at a younger age? Is it the girl child facing female genital mutilation? Is it that how girls are not enough in a typical African home? Is it how a man who has 3 girls or 4 girls will maltreat them and, behave anyhow and maltreat them just because they are girls? And probably do anything he wants to do, cheat on his wife, take another wife, sleep with whoever he needs to sleep with just to have a male child. That's even for the girls. What about the boys? Boys are told to be men. Men don't cry. So boys are not expected to show their emotions. What are the shadows in this? How do they show up? Shadows in this form of expectation is disconnection from your own body. People are disconnected from their own body. People have suppressed emotions, or they perform roles that crush their spirit. That's why you see people um, meeting needs that they do not actually they would not normally meet. In the previous videos, I said I know of someone that will go taking loans from people, collecting money from people just to satisfy certain people, or just for those people to actually see him or her as a good person or as a worthy person, for say, oh, this person has arrived. This person has made it. I can now respect this person. Performing roles that crush your spirits, doing things, just people pleasing. In fact, that's it. People pleasing. There are people pleasing situations that have become mental health disorders. The next one is the shadow of generational circles. Extended family are beautiful, yeah. But when trauma passes down, like harsh parenting learned from grandparents, the shadows feel ancient, unbreakable until grace steps in. I'm glad my daughter is a bigger girl now. I remember when she was celebrating her birthday or marking her birthday a few years ago, and the extended family was doing a video call, and I wasn't there. And one of the extended family members, a female who also has, children of her own, was smirking at my daughter on the video call. So my daughter could see what she was doing, the way she was doing her face. And my daughter said she heard whispers of ugly. So practically this adult, this person whom at that point in our lives we were looking up to, was actually, calling my daughter names and on video smirking at my daughter. You see how generational cycles continue. If I do not curb this now, you see, probably it will linger, because for my daughters to still remember it, it was something serious and it was something she took seriously. So trauma passes down. Harsh parenting, the way maybe a grandmom treated a mom, will probably be the way that mom would treat her own daughter, if it is not curbed on time. If that circle is not broken on time. And if you're a circle breaker in the house, my dear, it is not easy. The Lord is your portion in the land of the living. It is not easy to be a circle breaker at all. It is not easy to say, okay, I'm going to put my foot down, and this toxic generational pattern, I won't pass it to my own kids. If you're a generational circle breaker watching this video today, I'd like to say, well done. Thank you. Even if nobody is telling you, well done, know that someone here is saying it. You're doing a good job. You're saving generations to come. All these things we are talking about are not just personal. I've been talking to people, right? I understand people's story. I've heard a lot. They are not just personal. They are woven into culture. They are woven into poverty. They are woven into history. And when I say poverty, it's not just financial poverty, poverty of the mind, poverty of the spirit, poverty of the will, educational poverty, exposure, lack of exposure, history, people trying to keep up with whatever had happened. This is what we do in our church. This is what had happened in our church 90 years ago. Therefore, this is how it's going to happen in 2025 or 2026. Now, naming shadows does not trap us, right? It frees us to say, this happened, but it does not define me. This emotional neglect, this emotional abuse, this physical abuse, this environmental or family violence happened. This manipulation in the name of love happened, but it doesn't define me. Right. I hope you've enjoyed this episode today. Finally, our faith, right? Our Christian faith, especially the radical trado Christian, style of worship in West Africa. It has lights and it has the shadow side. What are the lights? That Pentecostal fire, some Catholics too actually have, the Pentecostal vibe and everything. That Pentecostal fire brings hope. It brings deliverance. It declares, the deliverance declares that no chain is permanent. And I believe all that. In fact, if I was, like I said before, if I was close to a church right now, probably be, in an all-night service, breaking those chains. I love it. I love it. The worships lift burdens. Community prays throughout the night. Testimonies turn into pain. Testimonies turn pain into praise. Testimonies are uplifting. You would want to be there. If you've not witnessed a West African kind of worship or church service before, try and do it. It's uplifting. There's no space for depression and anxiety at all. You are there, you are in the spirit, you are enjoying it. But then there are the shadow side of it. When every struggle is called a demon or generational curse, we risk blaming the victims. We risk shaming mental health needs. We risk rushing people's healing before processing the pain. You do not allow people process the pain. Everything is generational curse, even something that can be discussed outrightly and stopped. You shame people's mental health needs. I remember, I still know people that would refuse to take their mental health medications or supplements because of stigmatization, because you do not want the church to know that you're taking such medication. The shadow side of church, I can remember, I even wrote down this victim blaming of a thing. When I lost my dad in the church, I was still in school then, the campus fellowship where I was attending. This person, just a few days after I came back from the burial, during the exams, we went for an evening service and this person climbed the pulpit and, on the microphone, she said something like, some things are not supposed to happen to Christians. If you were praying on enough or if you were Christian enough, your dad wouldn't have died. I still remember it. This is something that happened 2011 or 2012. I still remember it because why would you say that? Why would you say that? Some deliverance practices can re-traumatize people. But God is calling us to a fuller healing. He's calling us to fuller healing where, vibrant faith works hand in hand with wisdom. You're practicing faith and reasoning. It's not just faith without works. Here we practice faith with works. You're taking that therapy. You're taking that time off. You're intentionally forgiving and letting go, yet taking the right steps to protect yourself. Jesus did not just cast out spirits. He touched lepers. He listened to women. He fed the hungry. The children came to him. Jesus practiced holistic grace, and that's our aim here. The reason why I'm bringing religion and I'm talking about a little bit of biblical principles in this podcast right now is because someone reached me some time ago and said, oh, even twice, or different people, but family members. The first person said, how comes I'm a Christian and I'm not as rich as people who are not Christians? Right? Another one said, I just had to let go and probably just swallow or bury anything that would have happened to me in the past. Why? Because I'm a Christian. I would have discussed my answers to those people here, but then it doesn't matter. I'm just saying, okay, these are some of the examples of things of the kind of manipulations that Christians go through, especially when you want to talk about childhood trauma, the pains of adverse childhood experiences. Most times you are shut down. You are given some Bible verses that will just shut you down automatically. You are gaslighted into just shutting out. But that's not our aim here. Here we forgive, we let go. Here we allowed God heal us. Here we practice holistic grace, and that's our aim. So what do we expect in the next series or in this next episodes? In this series, we'll continue to walk through these shadows one by one with testimonies, scriptures, gentle prayers, and practical steps. You'll hear my heart, you hear my stories. You hear guest voices or even videos. You hear listener stories, all pointing to the truth that grace is greater. If you have any story, if you want to share your story, either on video like this, or audio, or in writing, please flick me a DM in my Instagram podcast, Instagram podcast channel, Rhoda 360_pod, and we'll share your story. If you want someone to listen to you, just letting out those experiences, send me an email there or send me a message there. There'll always be a time for you. This week, let's try and sit quietly, ask the Holy Spirit to show you one shadow you may be struggling with. Write it down. Then, write down one truth from God over it. This is the shadow, but this is the truth from God. And see how God will change your life, how God will strengthen you to go through this phase. Yes, that God sees every shadow. And this is not about being just a Christian right now. Whether you're a Muslim, whether you're a Buddhist, no matter your religious belief, the Almighty, the Creator, sees every shadow. Bring your light gently. Ask God to bring His light gently and heal whatever was broken in your life. Let the grace of God cover every chain, and pray. Fam, you are loved beyond measure. Please subscribe, share this with someone who would need it. Next episode will be talking about from waves to worship, healing discipline scars. For now, it's grace over chains. See you soon. Bye.